And what are the next parts on our Kawasaki project that we're doing for Glenn? He's got the wheels over here. We haven't pulled the tires off. We're going to ultimately paint the wheels and probably put a green stripe on them. But I had a little bit of time today, and what I want to do is restore this. This disc is in pretty rough shape. He asked me to polish these, see if I could clean them up a little bit, polish them, get this restored. It's a full floating brake. We've done it several times before, and I thought that would make a good video of how we've been able to do that on other bikes. Now, some of the discs that we've restored, we put a high polish on the part. Now, it's the part that doesn't get grabbed by the puck. And we've done our restoration to the part that usually takes a beating, that rubs where the pucks rub and where they get scratched and rusted and whatever. Oh, on our Kawasaki we have a little bit different setup here, where we painted inside, did the polishing of the rivets, and did the restoration of the disc on the outside. But this is a little bit different, and we're going to be trying to just make a nice restoration of this, so when Glenn gets time to do the wheels, this will be a nice complement to it. And it is my absolute favorite. I call it the nostalgia disc, where they came from the factory without holes. You had to develop a pattern, drill all the holes. You wore out 1,000 drills doing this. It was really a messy job. Some guys put them in a grinder or a lathe and thinned them out a little bit, and then they almost always warped. This is old technology. Luckily we're not dealing with that anymore. But it kind of has a nostalgic look. That's kind of what I like about it. So I don't know. Modern bikes, the brakes on this R1, you can't believe how good they are until you ride it. The brakes on this bike, really good. Really nice, but obviously not at the level of the R1. And the FZR brakes, all I can say is on track day they scare the hell out of you after they warm up. But anyway, all of these, and even the new Kawasaki that has the wave rotors, which seem to prevent warping just a little bit. But anyway, we're going to try to get this ready. And Glenn, I got the news today, Glenn has a title for the bike. Just so we have all this information on one video, original GS's, and I've had 2 bikes, of course, and I've got about 10 rotors that every single one of them warped. I eventually got, these are EBC rotors, and they warped. So I don't know what to say. I think that's just old technology. Now see, these are solid mounted, and the calipers move a little bit. Well, on more modern bikes, the calipers are solid and the rotors move a little bit. So different technology, maybe that's what prevents the warping. I'm not sure. I know in the past what guys have done is over-thinned the discs, way back in the 70s and in the 80s, over-thinned the discs, and they would warp up very, very quickly. So we're going to try to get a nice restoration on these brake discs for Glenn. So obviously the first thing is to pull this off the motorcycle. Now, a lot of times, these are things I've learned the hard way, and I mean the hard way. Sometimes these bolts, either from the factory or from somebody who took the bike apart, and in this case this is a 30-year-old bike. Sometimes they've used red Loctite, or sometimes the bolts just corrode into place and they really are difficult to break loose. Now what I'm suggesting is never use, just general information, never use the ball end of a ball end Allen wrench. A ball end Allen wrench is only to tighten it, to get it in place, and then you use the other end. Now, and I'm never sure until I start taking these apart. That one came right out. But you never know, and sometimes you get some of them out and some don't. And some of them, like the Yamaha, they're not Allen wrenches, they're those special wrenches that you need. These are not too bad. Now I'm assuming since Luciano had this bike apart, he's put this together. You don't even need the extension on it. He's put it together pretty well. We're not going to come up with, hopefully, any real surprises, a dead mouse or something where the wheel bearing should be. But to get the disc off, and this disc is in pretty rough shape. When we're done with it, be nice. And having an extension for your Allen wrench, all it does is just make it easy. Now what I like to do when I'm holding these on, never do this. Put your finger where that joint is. That joint can pinch you good. But I like to keep one hand on here pressing down. Ooh, that one was tight. And so that's one of the ways that one of the problems you can run into is just pulling the disc off. Now, I promised our friend in Portugal we were going to make a video of pulling the front wheel. Well, Glenn pulled the front wheel without me being there. So, but we'll get it sooner or later. Now, anyway, now that we've got this part, pulling the bolts out, I'm going to take them over. I'll take them out one by one. First thing, take them over to the polishing wheel and polish them up like jewelry. So I want to mention something. One of my goals is always, when I'm restoring a motorcycle, is to see how many little things I can do that'll make it noticeably nicer without spending a lot of money. Now, polishing up these bolts that are probably all, well, we know they're more than 25, 30 years old. They have oxidation on them. If we polish them, it's certainly going to look, it'll be an upgrade. We're going to try to clean up the parts that hold the disc to this, because since this is a floating disc, and since I know Luciano's used this on the track, I know the brake would hopefully be a strong enough brake for this size motorcycle. This is a relatively light motorcycle. I think Glenn is going to be shocked when he sees how much fun it is to ride one of these little bikes, since all the bikes he has are big bikes. Another thing, we would also have to pull a disc anyway if we were going to really do a proper job of painting the wheel, which we are. And this is just going to be, like we're trying to kill two birds with one stone. But again, remember, my goal is always to find little inexpensive things I can do, even if they're labor intensive, but things that don't cost a lot of money. Now, to restore this disc is going to cost pretty much zero money, a couple hours of work, and if you look at it close, the disc is in pretty rough shape. So when we restore this, it's going to really be nice. Now, one of the unfortunate things, and it's not a big unfortunate thing really, one of the sad things is, if this were the same wheel that's on my 750, I would have a double disc wheel, and I have a double disc set of forks, a spare set of forks, and a spare set of double disc wheels. He could make this a double disc front end. I don't really think you need it with this weight, size, power. It's about a 50-55 horsepower bike, maybe not even that, I don't know. But the thing about it is a light, nimble bike. It's really going to be a lot different than the bigger, heavier, more powerful bikes that Glenn's used to riding. So I really think we're going to have a lot of fun with this bike. So our first little thing is to go over to the buffing wheel. Again, we're looking for things that are going to cost almost no money. If you want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on aftermarket parts, yeah, that's another way to restore motorcycles. But my goal is always to do it for the minimum amount of money possible and do as much of the work as I can myself. But then I know it's done right. And so from a cruddy, rusty bolt, I don't know if we can even see that this came out pretty nice. We basically did all 6 of the bolts, and again, it's a little thing. Some people say, "Oh yeah, you'll never notice that." Well, you know what? I notice it, and I know people that are very conscious of how their bike looks, and it's basically free. And we're going to take the wheel apart anyway. We're going to change the tire. We're going to paint the wheel. Doing this little brake upgrade, it's almost like a free job. Now, of course, when these bolts get installed back into the wheel, we're going to use blue Loctite. Blue Loctite, not red, in case we want to take this apart conveniently in the near future. And every time I do any maintenance on my motorcycles, on my collection, and I have to take something apart for whatever reason, I always polish up, clean up, get the rust off the bolts, or in the best of all worlds, run them on that buffing wheel. So the next part of this project is to go over to the wheel and try to clean this up as much as we can. Get as much of the rust off before we do anything else just wire wheel and get some of that rust off. The wire wheel that I prefer to use, and I have steel and these brass wire wheels, these are a lot softer. They seem to do a lot nicer of a job. I even have one over here that's really nice. This is a super soft brass wheel. It really does a nice polish, and it's on the small polisher. But if you use a steel wheel or a real hard wheel, what'll happen, it tends to leave really deep scratches. Where these wheels, and they're relatively inexpensive, so it doesn't even matter, these wheels tend to do a really nice job. And because I want to mention everything, this is a really ultra soft wheel. This is a wheel you almost use for polishing. I use this in a drill press at a high speed, but you can see it's very soft. And what that does at the very end, when you're all done with any getting the rust off operation, you run that on, it leaves a nice polish to everything. Again, none of these tools are high tech, none of these are expensive. That's what makes a restoration, to me, worth doing, is because you're not spending a ton of money. So what I wanted to show is how quick that pulls off the rust. And one little spot's all, obviously I'll work my way around the whole disc, try to get it to the point where there's no rust on it. That would be step one. Now what this disc has, and several that I've done have just like this, the EBC logo and their other little paraphernalia, and they have an arrow. The arrow is a decal. Well, you know what? I'm going to take my engraving tool, because when we're done polishing this, there's not going to be an arrow there. So the point is, I can engrave this right into the disc. I think it'll be a lot more realistic than. We'll find out. And of course, the little Harbor Freight engraving tool is only about 10 bucks. Yeah, this is one of the tools that comes from Harbor Freight, of course. These little ends pop on and off. And they come in smooth, medium, and rough. Now, what I do, they come in two sizes. I think these are 3-inch and these are 5-inch. No matter which one I use, I want to have it on the highest speed possible. I want to just move the disc maybe about a 1/4 of an inch each time I do this. Now it leaves little tiny, very fine scratches that let the pucks, I assume Glenn is going to put new pucks on this, but even if he doesn't, this will reseat the pucks very quickly. And that pretty much gets the rest of that really rough rust off. Now this tool here is also very handy. It's 3M pad, little pieces that, what this is useful for, and I have one on here now, this is a different grade of, I think this is the rougher of the two, but what this is good for, when you have some material inside that you want to get the burr off. It tends to clean up scratches and stuff very quickly. So what I wanted to do is show, in fact, you know what I think I'll do? I want to do, I want to show some of the special polishing tools that I've developed and used over the years. Just as an example, this little polishing tool, and I think I'll show these all separately. You can see how nice that polished up. Here's one that isn't polished. In a matter of a couple of seconds, you've got a really nicely polished part. I'll show these tools separately at the end of the video. You know, I think that'll add, just that restoration of that disc alone is going to add a nice little, I think a nice little touch to our project. That's for sure. And we got to get busy on those wheels next week. Now I'm assuming our Honda project, the same thing. Mark is going to be cleaning up all the brake, all of the same thing. I just assume that, I don't know for sure. It'll be another video of doing the wheels. We've had this whole paint job on video, and now this brake disc restoration, which I hope if you're interested in this kind of stuff, you'll just subscribe to our channel and send me $100. And if you don't subscribe, it's okay. Now, what I thought might be helpful at the end of this video was just to show some of the little tools. Now, none of these tools are expensive. These are all in the $3 to $5 range at Harbor Freight. And one of the best ones, the best investments, of course, is that little mandrel. This is the smaller of the two sizes. These little ends come right off. A pack of new ones is about $5. These really are great, even when you don't take things apart. You just want to clean the rust off or something, or they polish up nice. The smooth ones, the green ones do. I always save the old ones because I can always use them up on something that I'm just taking paint off a gas tank or something. Now, another little handy thing that I found was this little guy, and it's a little, I guess, a polishing thing that I can get inside, in between things. And again, very handy. Now, if you ever have a choice of buying these tools, and they're very inexpensive, I said they're $3. You'll notice some of them come with a round shaft. The ones that are a few dollars more have a hexagonal shaft. Well, this locks into your drill or drill press a lot better. Again, these are usually $1 or $2 more, but I haven't found it necessary. Now, these little wire brushes, again, sometimes you get a pack of them, there's like 6 of them for $10. Very useful. Some of the things that I found useful, this was useful today. We wound up using this. This imparts a nice finish on aluminum. The rougher grades, the smoother grades, these are great for taking paint off. And they come in really rough and not so rough. All the little wire brushes. What I'm saying is, I bet you I don't have $100 worth of tied up in the whole thing. An old sanding disc with some sandpaper for sometimes you have something rough. These are extremely handy, and this comes from Harbor Freight. This is a mandrel. Let me pull this apart. It's got Velcro on one side. These bolts usually loosen up. You got to constantly be tightening them because it's Chinese. It's made with who knows. But again, they're cheap. These little, I call them the fur pads. These fur pads buff things up beautifully without any compound at all. Just the way they are. Just the way they are. I call it the fur pad. Of course, the other pads that come with these, and this is that really soft wire brush. This was a specialty item I had when I was a partner in a machine shop. I don't know what they used this for, but this is probably an expensive tool. One of the few I have that's expensive. Another really neat little tool, and it's just nice to show these all kind of little wire brushes. You never have enough of them. Every shape, every size, and this is a real handy thing for. I was using this to get in between the fins of the GS, and you can see I wore it out doing it. Looks like my hair. Anyway, all the little brushes. Again, not a lot of money. Inexpensive stuff. Save your old toothbrushes. obvious reasons. You know, these are handy. All these little things. The reason I wanted to show this, a lot of people think you buy, this is another one of these that I've used with compound, without compound. And the final thing, when you're all done getting the rust off, you want to polish things. Well, these are the things that really work. Now look at the price on this. The reason I want to show this, $6.95. This came from Gavin's. This is an expensive tool, but it bolts right up to the inexpensive Harbor Freight, the Arbor. This will outlast a lot of polishing. It's just a wonderful tool. That's great to have. In fact, I have two of them. And always one with no compound or very little compound. One with a lot of compound. A lot of compound will cut right through all the goop. This will be used for final polishing. I always have a can of this laying around. This is the cheapest of the metal polishes from AutoZone. These are the ones that are worth their weight in gold. And these all come from Harbor Freight. They're basically felt. You can use them with no compound. You can use them with the wax and rouge. You can use them with, guess what? And I have a whole bucket full of these. Because they're useful. They do useful work. The soft pad. This is the best one. If you're going to do like the side cover of a Suzuki engine or something. Again, this comes right off. And you replace it with, this is what they look like when they wear out. And I do wear a lot of them out. But what I wanted to emphasize, this is one of the few expensive tools I have. This came from Gavin's. This is a high quality one. It's called a flapper. Now a flapper typically lasts a really long time if it's a quality one. This has a rubber backing, and you see the hex shaft. You can get the hex shaft into the drill press or the electric drill. Again, this was about 10 bucks. But again, I don't think buying expensive stuff, all these little wheels, you just go to Harbor Freight with a handful of coupons, have Karen buy some stuff, I buy some stuff, Miles buys some stuff. All of this is one I bought that I pushed it to the limit, and of course it broke. But I saved the shaft because I'll probably be able to use this shaft to make some kind of special tool that I'm going to need. When I need a special tool, see, this has a shaft on it, and I've just taped a microfiber over the end of it because I had some special thing I was grinding away, and I just wanted to be able to replace the microfiber. Another nice tool, and this I used for various things, it's an expanding rubber. So in essence, what you had to do, you had to buy the little covers that go over this, and then you'd tighten this, it would expand. I didn't find too many uses for that. But these little guys, if you're looking to polish up a bike, and the neat thing about polishing stuff, like polishing bolt ends and anything you polish, it costs almost no money. These little guys are handy for polishing whatever. Again, you can buy this kind of polish. It's called a rouge. You put a little bit of candle wax on and a little bit of this, or you can use this. Either one works fine. So I hope by sharing this information, everybody will have a little more enthusiasm about polishing their bike, because I truly do enjoy sitting out in the garage at night after a ride where the bike's all full of bugs and everything, and doing that cleanup job. And these tools make it very easy. Now, as I want to thank everybody for watching, thank everybody that's already a subscriber. The fact that I was wearing sunglasses for the last couple of days, including today, I'm under a doctor's care for an eye virus that I have, and I'm trying to prevent any extra light getting into my eyes, and the sunglasses really do seem to help. Anyway, we're at the end of this video. I hope you've picked up some good information. Hope you've enjoyed watching our presentation. And by the way, one final thing I would suggest, Glenn, when you're going to do these wheels, get a set of these Curvy Girl valve stems. They make life a lot easier. I got your bolts bagged up. I got your disc done today. We're ready to do some work as soon as we can get Mark over here for a day and do some decals. But we're down to having 2 projects in the shop. And this one, I can't wait to see this guy all put together. It'll be coming along soon. Again, thanks for watching. So the next part of this project is to go over to the wheel and try to clean this up as much as we can. Get as much of the rust off before we do anything else. Just wire wheel and get some of that rust off.